Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the series of videos on systematic literature retrieval in PubMed. This video will discuss the process of question analysis. When starting a systematic search, it is important to take a good look at your research question. Not every question is fit for the process of systematic literature retrieval. The question has to be clear and focused. I will give some examples of research questions that are not so clear and focused. If you consider the research question, how can GIST knowledge of patients be measured? This cannot be a good research question that can be answered via systematic literature retrieval because this research question is too vague. Another research question that is not fit to be answered with systematic literature retrieval is this research question. It contains so many terms that it is too specific. The third example that I give is this research question: what are risk factors for non-communicable diseases? There are so many non-communicable diseases that it is very difficult to answer all these questions. This research question is too broad. Once you have determined a clear and focused research question, you start to identify concepts in the question. This can be anything. Concepts are often related. It is therefore advised to consider grouping related concepts into elements. Different concepts together form an element of end of life. All outcomes that you are interested in are grouped together. It is important not to use all elements that you have identified. The reasons to not use an element could be bias. Some of the terms in these questions can cause bias in your search. Remember that your search only searches keywords or the words in title or abstract. An article on breastfeeding and intelligence might only mention the absence of an affective duration in the full text. And an article in general about parenting style and child behavior can answer your second research question. Elements have a tendency to overlap. When searching for patients with preeclampsia, it's evident that these patients are pregnant women. The abstract might just not contain these terms. Not everything is this clear. In the second example, Liechtenstein therapy is a therapy specifically designed for the treatment of inguinal hernias. In general, we recommend to search between 2 and 4 elements in your search. Many workshops on searching use the PICO format: patient, intervention, comparison, outcome. Searching is often even called doing a PICO. PICO is, however, rather limited in that it is mostly applicable to therapeutic questions, and it invites a searcher to include too many elements in their search strategy. We advocate our own different methodology that works on all types of questions. Our model considers elements to be specific or general. In a specific element, not so many references are to be expected from the database. For a very general element, many references are expected when you search for this element in a database. For specific elements, the number of references will be around 10,000. For general elements, the number of references will be about 1 million. And in the middle, there's about 100,000. It's a sort of logarithmic scale. Whether an element is specific or general is independent of your research question. Depending on your research question, an element is either important or unimportant. The question that you ask yourself there is, can I find an article or can I think of an article that can answer my research question that does not have a certain element in its title or abstract or in the keywords? And the more of these articles that you can think of, or the more of these articles that you can find that do not have this element in their title, abstract, or keywords, the less important this element becomes in your research question. This is dependent of your research question. Our model will become more clear if we use an example for this. The example research question that we will take is, does eating broccoli help in the prevention of cancer? This research question, we will all recognize, contains 3 elements: broccoli, prevention, and cancer. Now, where would we put the elements in this scheme? Let's first consider the element of broccoli. If you would search for broccoli in PubMed, you would clearly see that there are not many references regarding broccoli. There's about 12,000 references in PubMed on broccoli. So broccoli is rather specific. Is it important or unimportant? The question that we can ask ourselves is, can we think of an article that does not have broccoli in our title abstract, but can answer the research question? We can probably think of such an article, because there might be an article about vegetables. However, the article must have investigated broccoli to be able to answer a research question. Broccoli is important in our research, but broccoli might be a bit too specific. Maybe we should consider broadening broccoli. If we broaden broccoli, we could consider the group of vegetables called brassica, which includes the cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, and cabbage. Or maybe we could even go further in broadening into all vegetables. Probably all vegetables would be too broad. Let's consider that we use the term brassica to not be too broad, but also not be too specific on broccoli. Now, if we look at the element of prevention, prevention is much more general than broccoli. If you would search for prevention in PubMed, you will get about 1.7 million articles. Prevention is very general. Now we ask ourselves, is prevention important in our research question or unimportant? Can we think of an article that does not mention prevention in title abstract, but is able to answer a research question? I think that any article that finds a relation between broccoli and cancer can answer a research question. Because there might be an article that says broccoli causes cancer. In that case, it cannot prevent cancer. This makes prevention unimportant in the research question. Now, cancer, you might all recognize, cancer is rather general. There's about 3 or 4 million articles in PubMed. And it is important in this research question. So cancer we put in the top right corner. Now, why do we do this exercise? This helps us decide which of these elements you should use in your research question, in your search strategy. The first element that you would start with in this case is brassica. Only use the important elements in your search and start with the most specific one. If brassica on its own would retrieve only 200 references in PubMed, I would say stick with that. 200 references on the health effects of broccoli. There's about 12,000, that is too many, so you combine this with cancer. Now, if you combine this with cancer, there's about 800 articles. But if you would be doing a systematic review, this would totally be acceptable. But if you're not doing a systematic review, there might be other ways to limit the number of references to make it acceptable. Maybe limit this on study types, such as cohort articles. Now with this method, use this method to consider the next research question. Does exercise therapy for hip osteoarthritis improve quality of life and mobility compared to surgery such as total hip arthroplasty? Determine the elements in this research question and decide which of these elements you would use in a search strategy. Don't forget to group elements that are related together into one element.